I think tonight Walton is having a third service. I would estimate between 5 and 7 p.m. There's a fair amount of Walton people who are praying. They left this morning from North Carolina, West Virginia, and will be at the border. And they're crossing and hoping and praying. They've got their customs form and declaration right. It seems like every other person I talk to has been away on March break, and they're trekking back. Time change was last weekend. Our clocks are moved forward. There's light in the evening. Don't you just love it? I love the time comes each spring when most people are not going to work in the dark and coming home in the dark. They're at least doing one of them in the light. Longer, brighter days is the message of my sermon today. For us, living in the Christian North, spring coincides with Lent. In the Christian South, of course, it's the opposite. Today's reading is one of the many light passages. Donovan writes about what Paul means in those words that were read earlier. For you were once darkness, but are now light in the Lord. Paul contrasts the lives of the Ephesian believers and the Ephesus church before Christ. You were once darkness, with their current lives as people of faith. You are now light in the Lord. Let's flip back to Advent 2020. There was no Christmas tree up in the sanctuary decorated with beautiful lights and Christmas ornaments. There were no live services that year. So the solution was to put up one live Christmas tree at the top of the front stairs at the tower entrance, and to put up another Christmas tree out in front of the offices here at the back at the Allen entrance. Both trees were lit. And those lights were left on from sunset to sunrise. There was such positive feedback about those two simple trees. People told us those trees gave them hope. They would always look up at that lit tree on the tower entrance as they drove along Lakeshore. You see, that tree could be seen by anyone driving east or west or walking east or west on the lakeshore. The tree at the real Allen entrance could be seen by anyone driving and walking through the Walton parking lot. I'm amazed how many people do that every day. But it could also be seen by the condos, and some of you here live in those condos behind the church. In that 2020 Christmas of so many closures, the light of those two trees gave hope. Donovan reminds us, keep in mind that darkness can never dispel light. It always works the other way around. Light always dispels darkness. Light always wins. Psalm 18 and 28 reminds us, God brings light to dispel the darkness. With God's light dwelling in us through faith, we can each do the same for others, is to dispel that darkness. As you read in the Holy Book, you can see as you go through all the books of the Bible, how often light is mentioned. light and darkness contrasting, good and evil, chaos and order, danger and security, joy and sorrow, truth and untruth, and ultimately life and death. Our Tenebrae candle liturgy we are using for this first time for Lent 2023 calls us in a reverse way from Advent, to be aware of the difference between light and darkness. Now, up off the church balcony is a room we use for storage. We also use it to access the tower bell, to ring before services on special events, November 11th at 11 a.m. I always found going into that room was a sort of a downer. Maybe because I realized that we had to sort it out and clean it up and reorganize it. But then I realized, looking up, it's a fairly large room with a high ceiling, but there was only 100-watt standard bulb to cover a fairly large room. And there was very little light coming from outside. Then one day when I was at Home Hardware, I was walking by the end of an aisle display where high-density LED lighting units were being sold. The units promised to brighten any space. It could just be screwed into any standard light bulb outlet. I was standing there reading about it, reading on the box, when this other shopper went by me. They saw what I was doing and stopped and said, "Buy it." It got rid of my darkness. They had successfully apparently put it in their garage. So I thought, let's give it a try in the tower room. Well, that lighting unit delivered everything that was promised in the box. How refreshing that the advertising led up to not even adequately cover how incredible that unit was. How often does that happen? Well, it made the tower room feel like a brand new room. It didn't sort out everything that needed to be sorted out. But more than once I've thought of what that other customer said. It got rid of my darkness. This is exactly what Paul is speaking to us about on this fourth Sunday of Lent. Our faith is about getting rid of our darkness. Doesn't it feel different when you come in on a day like this and the sun is coming through all the windows? Then coming in on a day where it's so cloudy and even foggy and so dark. But it's more than about the sun in our Christian journey. It's like my boss said one day, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Of course, it was Jesus speaking in John 8 and 12. But back to Christmas 2020. Often I would see people on one of those long, dark nights near the winter solstice, standing in front of the tower entrance by the Christmas tree that we put up there for the first time. I thought, are they trying to get into the church? Well, the odd one was. But then I realized they were having their photograph taken. Whether it was a selfie or someone was taking the photograph for them. And these were not just Walton folk, but people going by. There in front of that basic evergreen tree, it was lit with simple white lights, no decorations. It wasn't like the incredible trees decorated along the lakeshore and the huge homes in Burlington or Oakville. It was a simple Canadian evergreen with white lights. But shot after shot was being taken. I realized those photographs were a statement of hope. In that dark, closed winter of 2020, it was the church's tree lit up in the gloom. As the psalmist again puts it well in these words, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light for my path." And I think many people walking along on the sidewalk, or a lot of people go up off the sidewalk and walk across our sidewalk and through the front garden area, they stopped and they decided they would get a photograph, a symbol of hope. It's like the relatively new crosswalk the town put up here just on Bronte Road. Maybe you have one like it in your neighborhood. It crosses Bronte Road here at the Anglican Church on the east and comes to the west side to where Amica is. And I often use that crosswalk walking to the office and back to the manse. And those crosswalks have an incredibly high-intensity, rapidly flashing lights to them. But it's interesting. If I'm walking during the day and I push the button, I often have to wait a while till the first car will stop. And when they stop, the other cars stop behind them. I have to wait a fair period of time till I can safely cross. I would think maybe only 1 in 4 stop when I push the button. But on a dark night, when I push that button, I think nearly every car stops. They see that incredible light in the darkness, and they stop. You see, light works far better to overcome the darkness, to offer a safe passage, a safe crossing, whether it's Bronte Road or whatever we're facing in our lives that we have to cross. Remember God's first act of creation? In Genesis it says, "Let there be light," and there was light. Paul calls these Ephesian Christians in our passage today to walk as children of light. In other words, Paul is challenging them to ensure that their lives reflect the true character of being children of light. Do we guide others by our light? Or distract them by our darkness? How do we shine? Jesus told his disciples, hence you and I, you are the light of the world. Those words from Matthew 5 speak to us in our current day. Life can so often be like sailing out in Lake Ontario. Maybe you leave Bronte Harbor, and it's after sunset, and you're out there not far on the lake, and a fog rolls in. And you don't have a GPS, don't have radar, so you think to yourself, I'm going to have to head to port. And what is it you look for? The harbor lights. They're at the end of the pier. They are there to show you your way home. We are called to be harbor lights for others. There are many around us needing a safe way home, a safe harbor, a port of refuge. The poet Fanny West maybe catches this theme of light in these verses. You are the light of the world. Once in the night, but brought into the light. Once dead, but made alive. Once in the darkness, but brought into his brightness. You are the light of the world, enlightened and illuminated by the light, the way, the truth, and the life. Made the hands and the feet of the Most High, made his voice in the wilderness, his emissary, his ambassador. You are the light of the world, a city on a hill, called to call others who sit in darkness, called to point others to the cross, called to shine in the darkness, called to be co-workers with God, called to lay down your life for others, called to be a bridge for others to cross to God, called to carry your cross and die on it. You are the light of the world, called to be the full of the world, the full of the Word, delighting in the Word, armed with the Word, saturated with the Word, adorned with the Word, directed and counseled by the Word, fueled and propelled by the Word, feeding frequently on the Word. You are the light of the world. Shine in the darkness, giving glory to God. You are the light of the world, a city that is set on a hill, cannot be hidden.